I'm AP Townley, and this is Roleplay Culture. I don't think any of us can deny the magic of music, but does the bard stand up to the test? I think if you want to test the strength of a class's magic, then you need look no further than their cantrips. Cantrips, also known as 0th level spells, have no limit on how many times you can use them in a day. There's no spell slots or anything that states times per day. You just use them. There are some funky rules involving using a leveled spell with, say, your bonus action, and then only being able to use cantrips for your spells with your action, which makes your cantrip choices even more important. And if you're wondering about the title of this video, 4 might seem like an arbitrary number. That is because bards only ever get 4 cantrips in their career. Just 4. 2 at level 1, another at level 4, and the last at level 10. So we better make them count. So here are my picks for the bard. Of course, they're just my opinions. Some of these cantrips may work differently at your table, so when in doubt, talk to your DM. Number 1, Vicious Mockery. Is there anything better than insulting someone to death? I bet the only time people Google Shakespearean insults is when they're looking for good vicious mockery lines.
Doth mother know you weareth her drapes?
This enchantment cantrip takes an action to cast, has a range of 60 feet. Interestingly, it only requires verbal components. The insults you spout, I imagine, to actualize the spell. So you can be without your spell focus and be tied up. But as long as they're foolish enough to not silence or gag you, you can still curse them to death. The spell does 1d4 psychic damage, which increases incrementally with every extra die at levels 5, 11, and 17. The target must fail a wisdom saving throw for this to be successful. You might look at that pitiful damage die and scoff at the meager amount, but don't be so quick to judge. Bards don't have a lot of ways of doing consistent damage, and this psychic damage, which is very rarely resisted, so don't undervalue it. But it's the next part that's the real juice. The enemy's next attack has disadvantage, and that can be clutch. A hill giant, which hits very hard, can make 2 club attacks, but its rock throw, which is its biggest attack, only gets 1 of those. So imposing disadvantage on that attack can save a character, or at least protect against a potentially very nasty critical hit. I've heard how some consider this cantrip kind of lackluster, but it's a bard stable for a reason. And it's just so unique and thematic. I think only the bard gets access to this outside of maybe specialized backgrounds. Number 2, Dancing Lights. This cantrip gets a bad rap. It's often called just like a worse version of the light spell. Or better yet, just a torch, right? But I think this cantrip requires a deeper look. Yes, of course, it can be used as a light source. This evocation cantrip takes an action to cast, requires concentration, it lasts for a minute, has a range of 120 feet. And yeah, it creates 4 floating torches like balls of light. Each shed dim light at 10 feet radius. So in a pinch, yes, it can be used as a light source. As a bonus action, you can move these lights up to 60 feet as long as they're still within your 120-foot range. 120 feet, by the way, is a really big range. The light themselves must be within 20 feet of at least one of its kind, so you can have them strung out in a 20-foot line apart from each other. They can also be combined to make a vaguely silhouetted humanoid shape, if you wish. This is the kind of spell that I love, because its creativity, just the sky's the limit. I mean, the light spell is better for making light source, sure. It lasts an hour, no concentration, it makes a brighter light. But illumination is just a side benefit of this spell. It's the creativity that's possible. And that's what I want most. One trick I always like is making the silhouette in some trees that may trick an enemy to investigate and divide their forces, making them easier to handle. Or you can use the 4 light orbs for signaling. Morse code only requires 2 differentiated signals to work, and we technically have 4. We can send secret codes in the night, or even in a battle as long as it's dark. So many things to do with this humble spell. There are other cantrips that may pull off some of these effects, but not just one. You'd have to combine several, like light and minor illusion, and cobble it together to get the same effect. So, this cantrip's efficient. Number 3, friends. Can't we all just get along? Well, with this cantrip, yes, we can.
She's our friend and she's crazy!
For a short while, at least. This enchantment cantrip takes an action to cast and lasts a minute with concentration. It has a range of self, which is curious. It means there's no saving throw for this spell. The creature you're trying to be friends with can't be hostile to you. They don't have to like you. They just can't be hostile. And for the next minute, you have advantage on all charisma checks with them. As if a bard wasn't bad enough at convincing everyone to give them the shirt off their backs. I can't imagine you failing any of these checks now. But there is a caveat here. As soon as the spell ends, the creature becomes immediately hostile to you. Now, you might run away screaming from that little side effect, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. If you're careful and clever, you can turn this to your advantage. The fact that you know definitively that it turns a creature hostile is actually kind of helpful. You might not realize, took me a while to at least, but the first level spell, Disguise Self, doesn't require concentration. It lasts an hour. Also, the Charlatan background gives proficiency with a disguise kit as others. Either way, it's not too difficult to make yourself look like anyone but you. So after you question your target, you just slink away, drop your disguise, and they'll never know the truth. But even better, you don't choose any old random fool to copy, but someone your target might actually recognize. Either through spells, disguises, or just plain old lying. They think the one that just charmed them was some other enemy or organization. And you just have to set the two of them at each other's throats. All part of the plan. Number 4, Prestidigitation. There's so many other cantrips we could talk about. Mage Hand, Minor Illusion, all staples for any spellcaster. Message and Mending for utility. But how could we, as show men and women, ever pass up this cantrip that literally puts on a show? I know this cantrip, along with its sister spells, Druidcraft and Thaumaturgy, aren't the favorites of some. They don't necessarily like the nebulousness of it. That's fine. But if there's any character that took any of those 3 spells, it would be the Bard. This transmutation cantrip takes an action to cast, has a range of only 10 feet, and has a duration of an hour without concentration. That is a really long time, by the way, for a cantrip. There are a variety of effects that you can create. You can create a harmless sensory effect, showers of sparks, musical notes, etc. Be nice to have some backup tunes or pyrotechnics for your performance. You can ignite or snuff a candle or a torch. You can clean something that's dirty, like if you have to meet the king after just battling an army of orcs and you're covered in filth. You can mark a surface or change the temperature of something. It'd be nice to chill your beer or reheat your soup. Finally, you can create an illusory trinket. Maybe you can swipe the key from a guard's desk and leave behind an illusion for just a little bit so they don't notice that it was you that took it. And what's really cool is that you can have up to 3 of these effects going at one time. So you can make some pretty complex scenarios. With this spell, your bard could put on a small little concert all by themselves. What artist doesn't want that? You can perform with your lute, with backup music, flashing lights, and a pyrotechnic finale to just finish things off. Rockstar.
We will rock you.
Those are my picks for cantrips for the Bard in D&D 5e. To see future videos of this series, subscribe, ring the bell, smash that like button, share the video, leave comments below on what you would pick for the Bard for cantrips, and I'll see you in the parlor.